and then I'll do an official. Okay, we're ready. All right. Welcome, Amy. We appreciate your service on the Personnel Board for the past 3 years and are very glad that you have reapplied this time. I am Kim Zachary. I'm going to introduce you to everyone, even though you know everyone, because I just do the exact same thing for every person so that everyone feels like it's fair. So sure. I am Kim Zachary, the Warren One representative and the president of Town Council. Nick, what's your official title?
Management Services Administrator.
Management Services Administrator. Bob Grimm is our town manager, and Brian Sullivan is a member of the Personnel Board. And for people who might be observing this, he is not the chair. Amy is the current chair, but we needed a stand-in to interview her. So that's why it's a little bit different. If you look at the other interviews, you'll see Amy was interviewing those people, and so it's a little different now. So to explain all that. So I'll let Brian start us off with a couple of questions that he might have, and then we'll move forward. And then at the end, Amy, if there's something that we haven't addressed that you feel like needs mentioning, please feel free to do that, okay?
Okay, and Kim, if I can, I'll just mention that Ryan Hawk is listening in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do see him there too. I apologize. Yes.
Our Chief of Police, for those of you who may not know.
Right. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. Now go ahead, Brian.
Okay. So I'm trying to keep this as consistent as possible, given the other interviews that we're using based on recordings. So I was going to risk of being a copycat, adapt / parrot the questions that you had asked, Amy, actually. So the first one was how you learned about the opportunity. We know you have known about the opportunity for a while, but what is your interest, particularly in the next phase of your proposed involvement with the Personnel Board?
Sure. So primarily, I'd like to kind of get going and make some decisions, and we have started that with the sergeant selections. I say that because I couldn't believe that I have been on this committee for almost 3 years. It seemed like in the beginning there was a lot of stops and starts, and we had Mr. Portak was helping us then. We had a different police chief, and then we've had lots of turnover on the Personnel Board thus far. So it feels like we've met a lot and talked a lot, but not necessarily accomplished as much as I would like. So I'd like to start accomplishing things for the board, in particular, more citizen involvement, if that's possible, more police officer involvement. I think, getting more opinions. We did solicit opinions from the officers. Gosh, I guess it was about a year ago today. I'd like to see more of that in order to make some decisions that would really just help us move the police force forward. I think, as you all know, our primary role is to select officers as well as promote. We've done the first part of the promotion process with the sergeant interviews. I'd like to move on now to the selection process and get some names on a list so that when we do have approval to hire, we can go ahead and do that.
Okay. And then the next one was, could you just highlight some things about both your experience in general, your experience with Personnel Board so far, and any other things that you think set you apart to relative to other potential folks who would be applying? Sure.
I mean, I think obviously having been involved in this the last few years is probably a differentiator. And then in addition to that, even before getting involved in the Personnel Board, I've been in human resources for over 20 years in my career. So the aspects of designing an interview for selection processes and running that interview, and even some of the project management aspects of leading meetings and having the process, sort of seeing the process through from start to end, would serve me well. Some of my corporate experience. I've also been on a nonprofit board in another capacity. In fact, I was for I think the last 3 or 4 years, the president. Previous to that, I was vice president and the treasurer. So I have other board experience that's relevant. But I think primarily what sets me apart is having done this for the past 3 years.
Okay.
Almost.
Okay. That was the two primary questions I was hoping to ask initially. Kim, if you want to.
Sure.
Can I just,
Have
before
at-
you go into that, so you
Sure.
referenced, Kim, that there might be people watching this. Would this be just council members? We're not releasing these interviews to the public, are we?
Yes, all the interviews are public. They've always been public, yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Mhm. Okay, all right, Brian. So a couple of questions that I had, also trying to be consistent. I appreciate that, your fair-mindedness. Brian is, Amy, how would you describe your vision for policing in Mccandless?
I would say from what I have seen, I don't know that we need sweeping changes. I think the Mccannless Police Force is doing an excellent job. I don't know that like we need to turn it on its head and do something very different. But I do think getting more citizen involvement would be advisable. I love that the police and the council put together the Citizens Police Academy, which I participated in. I think more things like that, and the National Night Out that was done in August, all of those sorts of things, getting the Mccandless citizens, business owners, et cetera, more involved, that would be my vision, I think.
Okay. And what do you see as the most important qualities in a police officer and why?
Yeah, I guess I should have anticipated these questions.
Those are the same ones when you and
We
I were
weren't
interviewing.
anticipating tricking you, that's for sure.
But no, that's good, because see, you got to get it spontaneous, and it's fair because you weren't,
Right. I feel like I should have mapped out my answer. I didn't, but yeah, no, I think leadership, certainly, all of our officers, whether they're in a formal leadership position or not, are leaders in our town. So to be able to work with the citizens, communication skills, being able to manage different situations. One of the things that we encountered in the police academy the other night was some scenarios that they put us through. And oh my gosh, they have to be able to think on their feet quickly, and not just in critical, like life or death situations, but even when they get challenged by a citizen or have questions come up in regular conversations with people. I think communication skills in my mind would be paramount for all of the officers, and then leadership skills, and that's a broad category. So let me go into more detail. Leadership, including communication, also when it comes to setting examples for themselves, for their fellow officers, for citizens, acting in the way that people can look up to them.
all right. Great. My page here. What improvement? Well, you said you didn't really think we needed any improvements. You thought that we were pretty good as we were, because that was going to be my next question to you.
Well, that's not, I said, I don't think we need sweeping changes. I don't think we need to revamp the Mccandless Police Department. I think we're
Okay.
doing great.
All right, then the
However-
question will be, what improvements do you think we could make?
Okay, I think citizen involvement is a great one, to continue the police academy and look for more opportunities to get our citizens involved with the police force. I think some of the community policing that they have done over the years should be continued. I think Mccandless is a very different place than Pittsburgh, or even, some of the other bigger cities where the expectations of officers are different. So they need to continue to remember that they're here to serve. And, sometimes they don't necessarily want to take time to deal with a raccoon, for example. That actually came up in one of our sergeant interviews, but that's what being a Mccandless police officer is. So continuing to work with the officers especially newer officers or those who have different experience in the past. And sorry, my doorbell's ringing. Little distracting. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. I think
No,
I said most.
That's fine. Bob, do you or Nick have anything that you want to ask? Or I know you know Amy and have worked with her, but just giving you a chance.
No, I think,
Okay,
I
okay,
have a good feel for Amy's capabilities and
okay,
she's passed along her thoughts for moving forward. So.
okay. Nick, you're
I
okay?
can make sure that I ask this of all the candidates to be consistent. What would you say, Amy, is the most rewarding part of being on the personnel board and just being involved in this piece of town government?
Yeah, I think it's been really fun for me. I'm a social person, so I love getting to know the other board members, as well as some of the council members and some of the officers as well. I've really enjoyed getting to know that, and also learning more about kind of how the town works. I guess I really didn't have a lot of visibility. My husband had been on the planning commission previously, so I knew a little bit about that, but really serving in this volunteer role has helped me to realize, how local government works. And this is my first volunteer experience in a government capacity. So I've enjoyed that as well.
Just to echo kind of what President Zachary said, thank you again for your service, and especially with me, someone who's sort of, on the ground and involved in the day-to-day personnel board, the changes that need to be made and, the meetings and everything. I, really appreciate it. So just want to say thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Amy, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Just that, I've really enjoyed working with the team. I think that I would love to continue that. I'm not sure what the decision-making process is from here on out. I guess the council votes on it, but yeah, I'd love to continue the momentum.
All right, thank you. The plan is to, after we get off this, or after we've interviewed the two candidates tonight, then we're going to, this will be the nominating committee, and then the nominating committee will make a nomination to council. And at that time, any other council member could make a nomination if they wanted also, and then we'll vote. So my plan is for this to be at the next meeting, which is the 22nd. So you will be notified either way, but you can zoom into that meeting if you want, or I know you've attended some meetings if you want to do that, so you'll know. But I see no reason why it wouldn't be on the agenda for the 22nd. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you. I thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Have a nice rest of your evening.
Yeah, thank you to all of you. Appreciate you being here as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Amy.
Bye. Bye.
All right.
Okay, we'll go straight into Councilmember David Smith. I'll let him in.
Okay. Hi, David. Can you hear us?
I can.
Okay. Welcome this evening. I'm going to give you the same spiel that I give everyone for completeness and fairness. So I give it to everyone. This is the same thing I do in anesthesia. I don't care who you are, I give you the same spiel because that way I know I've covered all the bases. Okay. All right. So this is, of course, the interview for the Planning Commission. Thank you for applying, and thank you for
Personnel board.
Personnel board.
excuse me, I did the Planning Commission last week. I apologize. The Personnel Board, thank you for getting oriented, and did the Zoning Hearing Board this morning. So I'm quite a few interviews. So thank you for applying for that. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank you for, stepping up and helping us out on council. That we've really appreciated that.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
So I'm Kim Zachary, Ward 1 representative and president of town council. Nick is our, say it again, Nick.
Management Services Administrator.
Management Services. I can't remember. I have a block for that. I apologize. Bob Grimm is our town manager. Brian Sullivan is a member of the Personnel Board. Usually it is the chair of the Personnel Board and then the liaison and backup liaison that do the nominating committee. But Amy is applying for this position and she's the chair. So Brian has stepped in and is, doing the interviews with us. So that's the crew here. We'll ask you a couple of questions at the end. If you have something you want to add, you can. And if I know you, you will. And then we can. And then tonight, after the end of your interview, we're going to talk and make the nomination. As you know, the nominating committee will make the nomination, but other council members can certainly make another nomination. And my plan is to put it on the agenda for November the 22nd. So you'll be notified either way, you'll be there. So you will be notified immediately. But like I said, I tell the same thing to everyone so I don't miss anything. So, okay, Brian, would you like to start us out?
Sure. First thing, just a little more depth on what you prompted you to apply. It looked like you were interested in 2 boards. And so what in particular about the Personnel Board was the thing things that sparked your interest?
The thing with the Personnel Board was continuing to work with the police department and the police personnel. I've talked with Chief Hawk a number of times while I've been on council, and it's being on council has definitely, I've been glad it's gotten me more into civic service, and it got me kind of more in touch with the police department than I have been in the previous 15 years I've lived up here in Mccandless. The Personnel Board I see as a way to continue that service and to help and serve the town and the police department.
Okay. And then a bit about just sort of imagining an assortment of other folks who are also interested in this position, how you think you could differentiate yourself in comparison to those other folks.
I don't really know anything about the other folks who are applying, but just, to myself, having served on town council and for, the last year and a half or so, gotten to develop a better understanding of kind of the issues in our town and citizens' perspectives. But beyond that, my background as an attorney, I've been an attorney for a little over 20 years, 22 years now. I worked in big law when I first came out of law school. I actually owned a restaurant and then worked for a small law firm. And so I think my background as both an attorney and as a business owner gives me kind of a broad-based perspective to analyze issues and, wide ranges of issues. I've dealt with a lot of personnel issues in the past, having owned my own business. Being an attorney, I can read through the language of codes, agreements, whatever, wherever any applicable language for, say, a grievance or anything like that might be coming from, or a policy, or, so that background and input into policies if there's ever a reason to make changes to personnel policies or anything like that. I think my background is well suited to that kind of stuff as well.
Okay. Over to you, President Zachary.
David, tell me how you would describe your vision for policing in Mccandless.
Keep doing what they're doing. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but I have a very positive impression of the police department here. To keep serving the community the way that they do, I think our police department does a phenomenal job in serving our citizens. looking forward, I don't think we here in Mccandless necessarily deal with a lot of the issues that have caused, national strife, made national headlines, let's put it that way. But one of the things that I had kind of bouncing around in my head, and I apologize, my mind is a little cloudy. I'm still sick, but so I'm talking a little bit slower than usual, and kind of sifting through my thoughts a little bit slower than usual. But one of the things that I had bouncing around in my head is, there has been a push nationally for kind of social work positions in police departments. My thoughts on that come at it from a different angle, and my angle is to take the folks, most folks in the police department are there because they want to help. They want to serve their community. They want to do good. They want to help. So take folks who are already in the police department, officers, and offer the training. Instead of opening a social work position, offer some kind of program to get existing officers that kind of training. And that way you're not dealing with having to send civilians into potentially dangerous situations, or having another head for an officer to worry about when they go to clear a scene. It's an officer who's trained in those. Not that I'd be making a push for that, but that's just kind of my line of thinking along those lines, is to use the resources that we have and the people that we have, and to accomplish anything along those lines that the town may see fit to do in the future, instead of kind of creating special civilian positions within the police department.
Okay. Two things I may have forgotten to say is, number one, these are going to be recorded for other council members to look at. And because Nick didn't turn us off and then back on, so I wasn't prompted with the recording has started to tell you that. So I wanted to make sure that I told you that in all fairness. And Chief Hawk is also listening in too, as you can see, I'm sure. But I did forget to tell you those things, so I wanted to make sure that I did tell you that. What do you think is the most important quality in a police officer, and why?
Wow, that's a really broad question. I think I'm trying to think of the way to word it, but being civic minded, if you could count that as a quality. And by that, what I mean is, there are a lot of important qualities to being an officer. But when I say civic minded, it's kind of the overarching characteristic, kind of the overarching important characteristic that, the officers are serving the community, that, their number one kind of reaction, and, that doesn't go to, that doesn't take anything away from how you respond to an emergency situation or an unexpected thing, but just kind of the overall approach, I guess, is what I'm saying. So the overall approach to serving is that, they are bettering the community, they are making the community safe, and, kind of keeping that in mind, and the pride that goes with that. I think that is the, to me, I think that's kind of the most important quality, and that's for those reasons. And like I said, also that just kind of feeds a sense of pride in what you do, that, you are out there actively bettering the community.
Great. Thank you. I think Bob and Nick both know you pretty well, but I give them a chance if they wanted to ask you anything.
I know at this point, David, I have a pretty firm grasp of your approach. So I don't have any other questions.
Nick?
Just real basic, David, thus far, what would you say has been the most rewarding part of being involved in town government? Whether that's your work on town council or something else?
That's a good question. I think it's not, I don't think it's a particular instance necessarily. But I think that it's just the and you know, not always and not with everything, because there are a lot of things that are that I see that we do that are just kind of stuff that has to get done, you know, bookkeeping type stuff, or um, I can't think of the word for you know, like the just kind of the regular resolutions where you're just cleaning things up. You know, there's stuff like that, but overall, it's the I feel like it's a way that I can use my skill set to give back to the community, and it's the you know, that I really do feel like with council, at least now with everybody that I've served with on council, it's an open council in the sense that everybody on council listens to what everybody else has to say, whether it's you know, and that's and I mean that broader than even just the council members, you know, whether it's you know, whether it's Bob or somebody else at the town who says something, or another council member, or members of the public, or you know, they're really open to taking in information and making each person making what they think is the best decision based on that information. And the thing that I've enjoyed with that is that I feel like that I have you know, certain approaches or certain skills that are helpful to helping make those decisions, and that people listen to that input. And I may disagree with the, you know, with other people's opinions on things, and I may disagree with the outcome sometimes, but I feel like my input is always heard, and so that makes me feel like I am actively you know, actively a part of bettering the town. And that's I think that's that long and rambling explanation is the best way I can put it, I think.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, David?
You know, I don't think I have anything in particular to add. You know, I like I said, I am I think I mentioned I did interview for the MIDA, and the MIDA and the personnel board were kind of the two that caught my eye. And I talked to Bob about it too, and you know, he thought I could be a good match for either. And you know, I would just like to and the personnel board is my first choice. I'll be honest about that. But I just love to be able to continue serving the town. I've really enjoyed my time on town council. You know, I may run again in the future, but the campaigning part of it is not up my alley. It is, and that's just I'm not really and I said it in the last interview too. I am much more of an introvert than I come across as. So kind of going door to door and talking about myself is not something which I guarantee anybody who's heard me on town council would be shocked that I'm saying that. But I am actually more of an introvert at heart. And so the campaigning part is kind of not for me. So, but we'll see, you know, we'll see what comes up in the future. But, you know, with the committees available and you know, there's one of the great things about being on council is I've learned about all these other ways that citizens can serve. And it's my fault for not paying enough attention before. But one of the best rewards I've gotten is that I've gotten to really learn a lot more about the town and how it operates and how I can help going forward. So I just I look if council sees fit, I look forward to continuing to serve the town in any capacity I can.
David, I appreciate you applying and like I said, for the service that you've given, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks. You too. And hopefully you don't have too long of an evening, since I think you said you had interviews last night and this morning, right? So
They were different.
right,
but yeah.
different.
Well, this morning and then last week, I think it was, but yeah.
Oh, okay. So you've had some long days.
Yeah.
Plus
All right.
you actually work too. So you actually have a job aside from this.
And a job. That's right. All right, David, thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Dave.
everyone.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay,
Nick, will you stop the recording, please?
Yes.